SOS Audio presents The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, the fan audio book, written by Nagaru Taniguchi. Chapter 1. And so, I entered the Singer High School in my area. At first, I regretted this decision as my new school sat on the top of a very high hill. Even during spring, students would become hot and sweaty just trying to climb the steep road. Clearly, my intention of going to school leisurely was not going to work. Every time I remembered this, along with the fact that I would have to repeat the same procedure every day for the next 3 years, I became tired and depressed. I overslept a bit today. Perhaps that's why I walked so much faster, and perhaps that was why I was so tired then. I could have woken up 10 minutes earlier, but as all of you know, you sleep the best right before it's time to get up. I didn't want to waste those precious 10 minutes, so I gave up on the thought, which meant I would need to repeat this early exercise for the next 3 years. This was just too depressing. That was the reason for my lone grim face in the time-wasting entrance ceremony. Everyone else had the starting a new journey look on their face. You know, the unique, hopeful, yet filled with uncertainty look that every new student wears when they start a new school. For me, this was not the case. A lot of old classmates from my old junior high were coming to the same school. To cap it off, a few of my friends were also here. Thus, I didn't look as worried or excited as the other people. The guys were wearing sport jackets and the girls were wearing the sailor uniform. Wow, that's a pretty weird combination. Maybe the snore-inducing principal giving a speech on stage had some sort of fetish for sailor uniforms. As I was thinking about these useless things, the idiotic ceremony finally ended. I, along with my not-so-willing classmates, entered Class 5. Our homeroom teacher, Okabe-sensei, with his practiced for an hour in front of the mirror smile, walked to the front of the classroom and gave a self-introduction. He first said that he was a PE teacher and the managing teacher for the handball team. Then he moved on to stuff like how, back when he was in university, he used to play on the handball team and even won the championship. And that this school seriously lacked handball players, so whoever entered the team would become a regular instantly. And then he said stuff like how handball is the most interesting sport in the world, and what have you. Just when I thought he would never finish, he suddenly blurted out, "Now, let's introduce ourselves." This kind of thing was pretty common, so I wasn't surprised. One by one, the people on the left side of the class started to introduce themselves. They raised their hand, then announced their name, the name of their old school, and other trivial stuff such as a hobby or a favorite food. Some people mumbled their way through it. A few had some pretty interesting introductions, while some tried to tell lame jokes that lowered the room's temperature by a substantial degree. As the different people introduced themselves, my turn was approaching. I started to get nervous. Everyone should understand how I'm feeling right now, right? After I managed to finish my carefully thought out minimal-length introduction without stumbling over my words too much, I sat down, feeling the relief one gets after having finished something unpleasant but necessary. The person behind me stood up for her turn and said something I probably won't forget for the rest of my life, and would be the topic of conversation for a long time.
My name is Suzumiya Haruhi. I graduated from East Junior High.
Up to this point, the introduction was still normal, so I didn't even bother turning around to look at her. I just stared at the front and listened to her abrupt voice.
Normal humans don't interest me. If anyone here is an alien, time traveler, slider, or an esper, then come find me. That is all.
Upon hearing that, I couldn't help but turn around. She had long and slender black hair. Her cute face was filled with daring and challenge as the rest of the class stared at her. Her seriousness and determination shone through her glinting eyes and long eyebrows. Her lips were tightly pursed. This was my first impression of this girl. I still remember how gleaming her white throat was. She turned out to be quite pretty. Haruhi, with her provocative eyes, scanned the class slowly, stopped to glare at me, because I had my mouth wide open, and then sat down without so much as a smile. Was she trying to be dramatic? At that moment, I believe everyone's mind was filled with question marks, and that everyone was confused as to how to react. Should I laugh? No one knew. Well, judging by the conclusion, she wasn't trying to be dramatic or funny, as Haruhi always had her solemn face on. She is always serious. This is based on hindsight, it can't be wrong. After the Fairies of Silence danced around the classroom for 30-something seconds, the homeroom teacher, with some hesitation, signaled to the next person to continue, and the tense atmosphere lifted. That is how we met. How unforgettable. I really want to believe this was all a coincidence. After she grabbed everyone's attention on the first day, Haruhi reverted to being an innocent high school girl. This was the calm before the storm. I finally understand it all now. Anyway, everyone in this school came from one of the 4 junior high schools in the city. People with average grades. This, of course, includes East Junior High. Therefore, there should be people in this class who graduated with Haruhi, who knew what her silence symbolized. Unfortunately, I did not know any former East Junior High students. Thus, no one could explain to me just how serious the situation was. Consequently, a few days after the explosive introduction, I did something I would never forget. I tried to talk to her before class. My dominoes of misfortune had begun to fall, and I was the person who pushed the first block. You see, when Haruhi sits quietly in her seat, she looks like a normal, cute girl, so I planned to sit right in front of her to get close to her. I actually thought this would work. How naive of me. Someone please beat some sense into me. Of course, I started the conversation with that incident. Hey! I casually turned my head around with that airy smile all over my face. The stuff you said in your intro, were you being serious? With her arms crossed on her chest, lips sealed, Suzumiya Haruhi kept her posture, then stared right into my eyes.
What stuff in my intro?
The stuff about aliens.
Are you an alien?
She looked very serious. No.
If you're not, then what do you want?
Nothing.
Then don't talk to me, you're wasting my time.
Her glare was so cold that I found myself stuttering sorry before realizing it. Suzumiya Haruhi then removed her glare from me disdainfully and began to frown at the blackboard. I was going to whip back a line or two, but I couldn't think of anything good to say. Thankfully, at that moment, the homeroom teacher came into the classroom and saved me. I turned my head back to the front damply and noticed that quite a few people were eyeing me with looks of great interest. This, of course, made me very annoyed. After I stared back at them, however, I noticed that they all had the same feeble expression on their faces. Some even nodded at me sympathetically. As I said, at first I felt very irritated, but later on I learned that all those people graduated from East Junior High. Given that my first contact with Haruhi had ended so horribly, I figured that I should keep my distance from her for now. For safety's sake. With that in mind, a week passed. But, just as I was still part of this class, there were always people who wanted to talk to the eyebrow-locking, scowling-mouthed Haruhi. Most of the people were those fussy girls. The second that they see that a fellow female student is becoming isolated, they try to be kind and help the girl. This is a good thing, but they should at least check their target beforehand.
Hi, did you see that TV show last night? The 9 o'clock one?
No.
Why?
I don't know.
You should try it. Even if you start in the middle, you won't be lost. Do you need me to go over the previous episode for you?
You're annoying.
That is how it went. It would be better if she could just answer no with that poker face. But no, she had to show her impatience in both her expression and her voice. This just made her victim believe that they did something wrong. At the end, he or she could only say, I see, then I'll just... and ask themselves, what did I do wrong? And whimper away. Don't be so sad, you didn't say anything wrong. The problem is with Suzumiya Haruhi's brain, not yours.